From strange disappearances to sounds that defy science, these 15 eerie events have left behind no answers, only questions that whisper in the dark. 15. Bourneholms Riddle. Denmark's tremors from nowhere. In the quiet Baltic island of Bornholm, Denmark, life is slow, peaceful, and mostly untouched by strange headlines. But on May 6, 2023, something unexpected broke that calm, literally. Around midday, residents began reporting deep rumbles. Some thought it was thunder, others were sure it was an earthquake. Windows rattled, ground-level vibrations rolled through homes and streets, and then silence. No damage, no visible source, just confusion. Naturally, people assumed it had to be seismic activity. After all, what else makes the ground move like that? But when Denmark's Geological Survey checked their instruments, there was no sign of an earthquake anywhere near Bornholm. It was as if the tremors had come from nowhere. For a brief moment, conspiracy theories filled the void. Was it underground testing, a sinkhole forming, something atmospheric? But the real answer would turn out to be even stranger. According to later analysis, the tremors weren't earthquakes, they were airquakes, a rare phenomenon where shock waves from high-altitude events hit the ground hard enough to be felt like seismic activity. But what caused it? Experts believe that a powerful pressure wave, possibly from a supersonic aircraft flying far overhead, moved through the atmosphere and hit the island with enough force to rattle windows and nerves. The Danish armed forces later confirmed that 2 fighter jets were operating nearby, but insisted there were no sonic booms at that time. That only deepened the mystery. If it wasn't the jets, what sent those shock waves? Another theory points to rare atmospheric disturbances, like meteors breaking up in the upper atmosphere. These events can create massive acoustic pulses that travel long distances and slam into the ground, sometimes thousands of miles from their source. Still, as of today, there's no official, confirmed explanation. The event is now known locally as Bourneholms Riddle, an unexplained shaking that left no physical trace, but left a deep impression on the people who felt it. It's a reminder that even in our mapped modern world, there are still natural forces we barely understand. One moment, the earth is still. The next, it feels like it's breathing, only no one knows why. 14th. Sabotage in the night. Who undid the rails of the city of San Francisco? On the night of August 12th, 1939, the city of San Francisco, one of the most luxurious passenger trains in the country, was running late as it sped through the Nevada desert. At around 9:33 p.m., it approached a high bridge near Harney, Nevada. Moments later, disaster struck. The train suddenly derailed, launching 5 rail cars, dining and sleeping coaches included, off the track and into the Humboldt River Gorge. The crash killed 24 people and injured over 120 more. The scene was chaotic. Rescue teams rushed to the site in darkness as survivors pulled each other from twisted metal. At first, many assumed it was a tragic accident, but what investigators found told a far more sinister story. Someone had intentionally sabotaged the track. The rails had been lifted and realigned just enough to cause a disaster. Whoever did it then painted the altered track to match the original and used tumbleweeds to hide the signs of tampering. To top it off, they had manipulated the signal systems, so the train's engineer received no warning. Even more chilling, divers later recovered tools used in the sabotage, thrown into the river to cover the tracks, literally and figuratively. It would have taken at least 2 people working for hours under the cover of darkness to pull this off. Southern Pacific Railroad offered a $10,000 reward. Over 90,000 leads came in. Witnesses claimed to have seen a man with mangled ears near the scene, but no arrests were ever made. The case quickly became one of the largest manhunts in U.S. rail history, without a single conviction. Theories ranged from labor disputes and revenge plots to conspiracies that the railway company staged the event for insurance. But nothing ever stuck. Decades later, in 1995, a strikingly similar derailment occurred in Arizona. The method was nearly identical. Rails removed, circuits bypassed, and the train violently thrown from the track. The FBI quietly noted the resemblance to the 1939 incident. Still, no link was proven. To this day, the question remains: who sabotaged the city of San Francisco that night, and why? It was a deliberate act, a well-executed plan, and whoever was behind it vanished into history, leaving only wreckage and a mystery that still rides the rails. 13. The Vanishing Mako, a boat full of people lost at sea. It was a crisp, late December day in 2020 when a 29-foot Mako Cuddy cabin boat departed Bimini in the Bahamas, its small crew of 20 packed aboard for a journey to Lake Worth Beach, Florida. What should have been a routine trip turned into a haunting disappearance. The boat was last spotted on December 28, 2020, then vanished. Multiple searches by the Coast Guard, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, and the Bahamas Air Sea Rescue covered over 17,000 nautical miles. But despite extensive efforts, no trace was found. It felt like the sea had swallowed the entire vessel whole. 6 months later, on June 24, 2021, a battered boat was discovered drifting near the Turks and Caicos. Inside, rescuers found the crew dead, their bodies in advanced decomposition. No survivors, no sign of struggle, no radio left on. And still, no one knows what happened inside the cabin. Online discussions guess at everything from carbon monoxide poisoning to catastrophic mechanical failure or even a deliberate act. One Reddit user described it chillingly: "I find it weird that there is very limited information available online. No identities were ever released." Another suggested overcrowding and poor ventilation could explain a silent, deadly, and unforeseen end. But without official findings, these remain speculations, not answers. Here's the eerie thing: a small, privately owned boat, fully seaworthy on paper, disappeared completely, vanishing from radar, CCTV, and radio. Then months later, it reappears as a ghost vessel carrying 20 bodies. No signal, no mayday, no clues. A teenager's cell phone found aboard, a life jacket cut neatly open, witnesses on nearby vessels. Nothing turned up, no criminal probe, no maritime investigation publicly released. The boat was towed away, and the mystery sank with it. So what happened to the people aboard the Mako? Did they succumb to a hidden leak of carbon monoxide, fogging their minds and trapping them in slumber below deck? Or did rough seas break their hull and flood the cabin in minutes? Could foul play be involved? Piracy, for hire, or retribution among themselves? Or is this simply one of those unexplainable tragedies where no evidence survives, only the questions? The Vanishing Mako remains a ghost story of the modern sea. A full boat lost in the night, reappearing months later, never revealing its secrets. 20 lives unresolved, 20 shadows drifting below the waves, forever missing. 12. The Eternal Storm, Catatumbo's lightning that never sleeps. In the humid evening air above Venezuela's Lake Maracaibo, there's a light show that never stops, at least not for long. Welcome to Catatumbo, where nature pulls off a nightly spectacle so bizarre it seems supernatural. Imagine the sun has just set, and you're standing on a boat, the horizon dark except for sudden bright streaks lighting up the sky. Dozens, maybe hundreds of them each minute, like a relentless strobe effect on nature's stage. For anywhere from 140 to 300 nights a year, locals call this the everlasting storm. It can flash for up to 9 or even 10 hours each night, sometimes striking 28 times per minute or more. The storms center right over the mouth of the Catatumbo River, where it flows into Lake Maracaibo. It's no accident. Geography is the secret. Warm, moist air rolls in from the Caribbean and hits cool mountain air coming off the Andes. The collision creates towering thunderclouds that repeatedly unleash lightning. But the science doesn't fully explain it. Some researchers think methane bubbling up from swamps and nearby oil fields may intensify the electrical charge. Others have even suggested uranium in the bedrock might play a role, though no one's proven it yet. Legend says the Bari indigenous people call it the House of Thunder. Its orange-white flashes are visible from nearly 500 kilometers away. Sailors centuries ago used the light as a natural lighthouse, calling it the Beacon of Maracaibo. But this beacon rarely sleeps. In January-March of 2010, drought brought the storms to a halt. When the storm skipped, people feared it was gone for good. Then, in April, it roared back. Today, the eternal storm continues to fascinate scientists, storm chasers, and tourists. Some believe those endless flashes could even help renew the ozone layer, but that idea remains unproven. It's a nightly show that lights up history, science, and folklore, a place where even darkness can't find shelter, and where nature's beauty seems as relentless as it is mysterious. 11th, Fort Hood's alarming body count. Deaths the military can't explain. Fort Hood, now Fort Cavazos, stands as one of the US Army's largest bases, but in recent years, it's earned a much darker reputation. Since early 2020, the base has seen over 28 soldier deaths in just 1 year, and it wasn't in combat. Most of the lives lost were ruled as suicides or accidents, but at least 5 homicides have been confirmed, and 7 more remain under investigation. That's not all. 159 non-combat deaths, including 71 suicides and 7 homicides, occurred between 2016 and 2020, according to a US Army review. Families and lawmakers describe these numbers as more than alarming. One congressman called it an alarming pattern of recent deaths and disappearances, prompting a formal congressional investigation into the base's leadership, reporting protocols, and culture. Investigators uncovered troubling findings. Sexual harassment reports were routinely ignored, and the base's criminal investigation division was overwhelmed and understaffed, unable to thoroughly investigate many cases. The tipping point came with the tragic case of specialist Vanessa Guillen, who was murdered in April 2020 after reporting harassment. Her death and the ensuing public and political outcry triggered a sweeping overhaul of leadership at Fort Hood, including the dismissal or suspension of 14 high-ranking officers. Yet, even after leadership changes, the reports continued. In one recent stretch, 3 soldiers died, apparently by suicide, in a single month, raising questions about whether the root issues, morale, oversight, and support, were truly fixed. To make matters worse, investigations into deaths like that of Sergeant Elder Fernandez, with known harassment claims, were slow and yielded few answers. Some families are convinced the official causes don't tell the full story, and public faith in the system remains shaken. Typing this out, I imagine a place meant to guard and guide young soldiers, instead becoming a site of unresolved tragedy, where bodies pile up in silence but no clear narrative emerges. The real mystery isn't just the deaths themselves, it's the environment that allowed them to happen. It's the unanswered questions. Where did accountability go? What patterns are being missed? And is Fort Hood unique, or a sign of systemic issues deeper in the military? Until these questions are answered, Fort Hood will echo less as a badge of duty and more as a warning sign of broken trust. What happens when the place meant to protect becomes a place you can't trust with your life? That's the haunting doubt left behind. 10. The Morgate train. Mystery, the crash that shouldn't have happened. It was February 28, 1975. A frigid London morning when a routine commuter train pulled into Morgate station. But in a moment that would haunt the city for decades, that train didn't stop. Instead, it shot past the platform, crashed through the buffer, and slammed into the wall of a dead-end tunnel at around 30 to 40 miles per hour. The first carriage was crushed down to just 6 inches, trapping 43 people. Over 74 more were injured. For those emergency crews descending into complete darkness, it felt like entering a mine after an explosion, hot, suffocating, and chaotic. Investigators found no mechanical failure. The train's brakes worked perfectly. Signals were all green. Yet the driver, Leslie Newson, appeared calm and alert until impact. His hand stayed on the dead man's handle, the safety device meant to stop the train if he let go. His body showed traces of alcohol, but experts believe it could have formed post-mortem, not before the crash. There was no sign of heart attacks or illness, and colleagues said he'd been planning to buy a car for his daughter just that morning. Even more unsettling, in the days before, Newson had overshot the platform twice in the same spot. Was it a tragic slip, a momentary lapse, suicide, a sudden medical condition like transient global amnesia or akinetic mutism? No one knows. The official inquest ruled it accidental death, but the mystery remains unresolved. No suicide note, no confession, nothing. Today, Morgate is remembered as London Underground's worst peacetime disaster, one that led to new safety measures. Trains now automatically stop if they approach the end of a track too fast. A legacy of what happened that morning. A memorial stands in Finsbury Square, honoring the victims, 43 names inscribed in granite, a cold reminder of a disaster that changed railway safety forever. But the heart of the mystery remains. Why didn't an experienced, sober driver respond? Why did the train speed ahead into certain destruction? To this day, the question echoes. What could have stopped Leslie Newson, internally aware, externally active, from saving everyone on board? The Morgate crash is a mystery anchored in silence, a quiet terminal with no answers, even as London's tubes race past. 9. The vanishing of Kenny Vich, lost in the M-shaped cave. On November 10, 2014, experienced outdoorsman and YouTuber Kenny Vich set off into Nevada's remote Sheep Mountain range. His mission was simple yet haunting: find the legendary M cave that he'd mentioned decades before, an oddly shaped cavern near Nellis Air Force Base that, according to Kenny, caused his body to vibrate as he approached it. Vich was no stranger to the desert. As a seasoned hiker, known online as Snake Bitten G, he'd spent years exploring mine shafts and backcountry trails. His first mention of the cave came in a YouTube comment. My whole body began to vibrate. The closer I got, the worse it became. Skeptics were quick to challenge him, and many dared him to go find it again. In October 2014, he did. Armed with a camera and a 9mm, he returned for a second attempt. He explored abandoned shafts, spotted a black ram watching him, but couldn't find the true M cave. His video showed no clear evidence, but the real decision would come days later. On that November day, Kenny left for what he called a short overnight trip, telling no one exactly where he was headed. When he didn't return, concern turned into alarm. A massive search began, led by volunteers and Nevada Search and Rescue. On November 22nd, his cell phone was found at the base of an old mine shaft, the same one featured in his prior video, but Kenny himself had vanished. No body, no belongings, no explanation. Theories sprouted like desert mirages. Did he misstep into a hidden shaft? Dehydration? Rattlesnake bite? Suicide? A spring 2021 comment by his girlfriend suggested he'd struggled with depression and even mused, "If I decide to do it, no one will ever find me." Others believed he discovered something he shouldn't have. Maybe a military site near Area 51. Videos taken of near M-shaped tunnels and whispered reports of strange scratch marks and sealed walls only fanned the flames. Reddit users remained torn. Kenny was way more experienced. It adds up to Kenny was just reckless and didn't care if he came back or not. If I remember correctly, he felt vibrations, went back, never returned. Over a decade later, the M cave remains unconfirmed. No maps, no photos, no official coordinates. Kenny's keen curiosity led him deep into the Nevada wilderness, and deeper still into mystery. No remains, no rope, just the digital remnant of a man driven by exploration, and a question that lingers with each canyon gust. What happened at the edge of that cave? 8. Devil's Kettle, the natural hole that defies science. Deep in northern Minnesota's Judge C.R. Magny State Park, the Brule River splits into two streams. One continues calmly, the other plunges into a yawning pothole, known as the Devil's Kettle. On the east side, water cascades over a 50-foot waterfall flowing naturally toward Lake Superior. But the West Fork, it drops into a hole, swirling fast, and then disappears. Visitors toss in ping-pong balls, logs, even GPS trackers. Nothing ever returns. Why doesn't it reappear? For years, people speculated about hidden underground rivers, lava tubes, or secret caverns. But geologists pointed out the surrounding rock is rhyolite, solid volcanic stone, not prone to carving into caves or underground tunnels. In February 2017, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources decided to test the theory with science. They measured the river's flow above and below the waterfall. Turns out both readings were nearly identical, 123 cubic feet per second above and 121 below. What does that mean? It suggests the missing water is resurging directly into the river downstream and not vanishing forever into a hidden chasm. Still, the disappearing objects remained a mystery. Hydrologist Jeff Green and University of Minnesota's Calvin Alexander believe the answer lies in the Kettle's plunge pool. They say the currents are so powerful they act like a giant blender, shredding, tumbling, and holding debris underwater for long enough that nothing resurfaces in the expected spot. They even plan to pour biodegradable fluorescent dye, sensitive enough to be detected at tiny concentrations, to trace the hidden currents during low water season. But here's the eerie part. No one's actually seen where the water re-emerges. It just does. We've confirmed flow remains the same, but the precise route of the water and where tossed items eventually surface remain unknown. Like many natural mysteries, the Devil's Kettle feels alive, full of small, unanswered questions that stick in your mind long after the hike is over. Stand beside that waterfall. Listen to the roar. You know half the river disappears, and even though science says where it goes, you'll probably never see it return. And that's the thing. We live in a world where we can count the water's volume, but sometimes we still can't follow the water. 7. Unseen. Until it's too late. The mystery of ball lightning. On a quiet summer evening in Alberta, Canada, Ed and Melinda Pardee stepped onto their porch during a thunderstorm, thinking they'll just watch the rain. Instead, they witnessed something astonishing. A glowing blue orb hovering just above the field, about 2 meters wide, shimmering like a ghostly lantern in the dark. It hovered for 23 seconds, then vanished with a soft pop. Looks like a firebolt, but not really. It's the wrong color, Melinda whispers in the video. This wasn't a trick of light. The couple says they heard thunder strike first, then this orb appeared, something science still can't fully explain. Ball lightning has been reported for centuries, often during storms, described as floating luminous spheres that drift, blink, and sometimes explode. Early reports date back to medieval Europe. In 1753, lightning reportedly struck scientist Georg Richmann in his lab. A glowing orb then exploded in his presence, killing him instantly. Yet, despite these countless anecdotes, hard evidence has been scarce. Most sightings are fleeting, blurry, or anecdotal, making scientific study nearly impossible. That's what makes the Pardee footage special. A clear, still-on-video sphere hovering in a suburban backyard. Scientists are split. Some say ball lightning is vaporized soil or plasma, tiny particles lit by lightning. A 2014 Chinese study even captured the first spectral footprint of ball lightning, finding silica and metal traces in the glowing sphere. Others argue it's light trapped in pockets of air or compressed magnetic fields. Still more believe it could be neurological illusions, bright flashes interacting with the brain during storms. Each theory suggests something different. Vaporized soil explains silica glows. Plasma bubbles explain the persistent light. Magnetic compression could account for movement through walls. Neuro effects may explain vivid hallucinations, but no theory explains it all. So when that ethereal orb floated across the Pardee's lawn, silent, radiant, and gone before they could process, it reminded us how little we truly understand about our own atmosphere. Ball lightning remains a ghost in the storm, silent, swift, and unseen, until it's gone. 6. The lost nuke of Tybee Island, America's missing atomic bomb. It was a routine night sky over Georgia on February 5, 1958, when a routine training mission suddenly turned high stakes. A U.S. Air Force B-47 bomber carrying a 7,600-pound Mark 15 hydrogen bomb collided mid-air with an F-86 fighter. To avert disaster, the bomb was jettisoned into the shallow waters of Wassaw Sound near Tybee Island before the damaged aircraft landed safely. Miraculously, no one was hurt, but the bomb vanished beneath the waves. A massive naval and air force search ensued, using sonar, divers, and cable sweeps. But by mid-April, the weapon was officially declared irretrievably lost. For decades, the Tybee bomb remained a ghost beneath the tide. Officially, the bomb wasn't armed. The Air Force maintains it lacked a plutonium capsule, the physics package needed for an atomic detonation, and posed no nuclear threat. Even so, 400 pounds of conventional explosives and uranium still rested in its casing. But uncertainty seeped into the story when a declassified 1966 memo quoted Assistant Secretary of Defense Jack Howard saying the bomb was fully functional. That contradiction fueled speculation. Was it a harmless dummy or a live weapon still gathering silt off Georgia? In 2001, the Air Force surveyed the site again. Their conclusion: the bomb lay under 5 to 15 feet of mud and posed no immediate risk. Past searches had failed, and disturbing it might do more harm. Locals took note. In 2004, retired Air Force Colonel Derek Duke dragged a Geiger counter behind his boat and recorded spikes in radiation, only to have officials later attribute it to naturally occurring monazite. In 2015, a private diver claimed to spot a large object, but no conclusive proof emerged. The question of containment remains urgent. One Redditor wrote, "The US has lost 6 nuclear bombs. Is this the one that is missing?" Another local commented, "It was indeed found. Close enough that a recovery crew was on standby, but a storm blew through that forced them to leave the area." That confusion, shifting between discovery and disappearance, has only deepened the mystery. What now? The Air Force continues to insist that the Tybee bomb is best left undisturbed at the bottom of Wassaw Sound. For residents, though, it's a ticking time bomb under their coastal waters. This is no Cold War-era tale. It's a live question mark 65 years later. No one knows if time and tide have corroded the outer shell, leaking uranium into the ecosystem, or if the bomb lies safely entombed in silt. For a coastal community, the phantom bomb isn't just history, it's a quiet threat, waiting under mud, forgotten by policy, feared by some, ignored by others. 5. The Siberian Blackout. A day the sun was erased from the sky. It was a bizarre afternoon on July 20th, 2018, in the remote Siberian Republic of Yakutia, where the sun never truly sets in summer. Around midday, villagers in Ivano-Bitantaisky, Jigansky, and Verkhoyansk looked up to see the sky darken to an eerie dusk. No warning of storms, no clouds, just sudden blackout. Residents reported headlights turned vibrant. People had to use flashlights outside, and the air felt heavy, like dusk had swallowed noon. One villager said it felt as if something heavy in the air was pressing on your chest. Social media lit up with panic and questions. Some blamed a secret Kremlin weapon test or alien tech. Animist locals whispered about devilry. But scientists pointed to a more earthly culprit: wildfires hundreds of miles away. Satellite images showed dense smoke, and where it mixed with mid-altitude clouds and a temperature inversion, the smoke became trapped overhead. By 2 p.m., the sun returned, but the memory lingered. Authorities confirmed no eclipse, no volcanic ash, no industrial explosion, just that strange 3-hour darkness. Meteorologist Yevgeny Tishkovets from Russia's Phobos Weather Service said unusually high carbon monoxide, over 7 milligrams per cubic meter, above safe limits, paired with stagnant air, could block sunlight and even chill the air by several degrees. Meanwhile, dozens of baby birds were later found dead, likely chilled in the sudden cold glow. Historians pointed out this wasn't the first dark day. In 1780, New England experienced a similar darkness, later attributed to wildfire smoke. And in 1938, Another Siberian black day struck Yamal region. Still, locals were shaken. One said they took torches to walk outside. Officials admitted they had no full explanation, and some media noted satellite signals had briefly gone offline, adding fuel to conspiracy theories. That afternoon, the sun wasn't just hidden, it vanished, leaving a community questioning the limits of modern understanding. 4. The Unblinking Man, Scotland's silent stalker in the dark. It began in late 1976 on a quiet Crosshill street in Glasgow. Two teenage girls were strolling home around midnight when they noticed a figure ahead, standing under a dim street lamp. As they got closer, the man's eerie stillness struck them first, like a statue come to life. Then they saw his face, a grotesque, frozen grin twisted into something beyond human. He emitted a low, animalistic snort, and when the girls looked back just seconds later, he was gone, without a trace. A few nights later, a housewife in the same area awoke to wet, grunting noises at the foot of her bed. She turned on the light and saw him, the same thin, uncannily still figure, his chest rising and falling, smirking in the dark. But before she could scream, he vanished. These weren't isolated stories. Police files later revealed multiple reports of a man, twisted grin, unable to keep still, all from that Crosshill neighborhood. Decades later, doorbell cameras in Clydebank captured something just as unnerving. In December 2023, footage showed a masked man slowly testing front door handles in the dead of night. His eyes never blinked, his posture never wavered. One resident said, "It gave me a real fright. Remember to double-check you've locked your doors." Police launched an investigation, calling him a terrifying night stalker. There's no agreed explanation. Was the original Gurning Man suffering from a psychological disorder, a local legend come to life, or something more sinister? And is the modern prowler linked, or is he simply tapping into the same primal fear that haunted Glasgow's streets decades ago? Stalking expert profiles describe this kind of behavior as meant to provoke fear and alarm. Quiet, invasive, emotionally harrowing. The silence is the tool. Unblinking presence, lingering just out of reach, watching. In both cases, the victims described a threat without words, a pause that says, "I'm here. I see you, and you won't see me again." It's a psychological dissonance. They're present, but not present. Solid, yet ghost-like. So, who is this unblinking man? A troubled soul with a grudge? A local legend passed down in the streets and camera feeds of Scottish cities? Or a shape-shifting symbol of our own nighttime anxieties? The door handles click, the suburban night falls silent, and that gaze, steady, chilling, unbroken, lingers in the back of your mind long after the lights go out. 3. The Tunguska event, the explosion that shook the earth, then disappeared. On a pale Siberian morning in 1908, near the Podkamenaya Tunguska River, something extraordinary happened. At around 7:15 a.m. on June 30th, locals reported a fireball streaking across the sky, brighter than the sun. Then came the blast, an inaudible flash followed by a shockwave so powerful it threw people to the ground and shattered windows hundreds of miles away. When Leonid Kulik led the first official expedition in 1927, he found over 2,150 square kilometers of flattened pine forest, trees lying in a radial pattern, as if pressed outward from an invisible center. Despite this devastation, no impact crater was ever found. The explosion happened 5 to 10 kilometers above the surface, and the object vaporized mid-air. Scientists estimate the blast released 3 to 15 megatons of energy, 1,000 times the power of Hiroshima. It remains the largest impact event in recorded history, yet the culprit is still uncertain. Was it a rocky asteroid, an icy comet, or something else entirely? Theories abound, each adding layers to the mystery. Asteroid or comet airburst. This is the mainstream view. An object between 50 to 100 meters wide exploded before ground contact. Twin object hypothesis. Some scientists connect the event to Lake Checo, a small lake 8 kilometers from ground zero, suggesting a fragment hit at a shallow angle. Exotic hypotheses, from ancient comet nuclei to microscopic black holes. While fringe, these ideas persist, fueled by unexplained details. Eyewitnesses described animals being flung through the air, a hot wind enveloping the landscape, and initial tremors recorded by barometers across Europe. Even today, researchers debate whether the event should inform our planetary defense strategies. What makes Tunguska extraordinary isn't just the destruction, but the void it left. A massive explosion, sweeping destruction, and then nothing. No crater, no fragments to study, no definitive answers. Over 100 years later, Tunguska remains a warning and a puzzle. In 2008, NASA launched Asteroid Day on its anniversary to remind the world we've barely scratched the surface in understanding and preventing future impacts. So imagine standing in that endless taiga, the ground calm again. No crater, just silent trees, and a sky that once burned brighter than the sun. The blast vanished into the air, along with whatever space object caused it, leaving behind only questions. What struck Earth that morning? What else could explode in the sky, unseen until it's too late? 2. The Outer Hebrides Hum, the sound that shouldn't exist. It began in February 2025 on the Isle of Lewis in Scotland's Outer Hebrides. Residents started hearing a low-frequency droning hum day and night, 50 hertz, just beneath the edge of perception. For them, it wasn't background noise. It was a relentless skeletal vibration that crept into homes, nerves, even thoughts. One doctor, Lauren Grace Kirtley, moved here for peace, not pulsing bass. Instead, she found herself awake nights, pounding headache, chest pressure, like somebody shouting in your face constantly for attention. She's not alone. Over 200 people joined a Facebook group to map the noise, swap stories, and chase its source. One poster described it best. It's a droning, pulsing sound. I have problems concentrating. Amateur investigator Marcus Hazel McGowan, a former radio technician, recorded the hum with spectrum readings high enough to ring alarm bells, but not loud enough to pinpoint. Theories sprang up fast. Some blamed local power stations or aging wind turbines. But officials from SSN and local council say the power station was off during many of the worst hum nights. Others pointed toward offshore marine engines. Still others suspected military sonar from nearby submarine activity. Globally, this phenomenon isn't alone. The Taos hum of New Mexico and Windsor hum in Canada share eerie similarities. Inexplicable drone, only some can hear it, and no clear source. One Redditor noted, "It sounds like a truck engine idling. Most people don't hear it." Others speculate infrasound, the near inaudible vibration from atmospheric waves or undersea currents, could be bending into perception during evening doldrums. But consensus remains elusive. Scotland's environmental health team is investigating. Regulators and military sources say they've found nothing to explain the persistent 50 Hz drone. Locals say the effects are real. Insomnia, dizziness, migraines, even mood shifts. One mother reported her baby refusing sleep. Another said she considered moving. In the absence of answers, community mapping, online forums, and spectrum logs are the only tools left. It's a sonic scavenger hunt across open moor and empty fields. A nervous vigil for a hush that never comes. This isn't a weather anomaly or wildlife screech. It's a sound with no source, infiltrating homes and rattling lives. A reminder that even in remote idols, mysteries hum just beneath the surface. 1. The orb strike. Mysterious sphere. Slams into man out of nowhere in Colombia. One ordinary evening in July 2024, a man in Colombia climbed a short flight of steps at his front door. Then everything changed in an instant. The CCTV footage, which went viral after being featured by The Sun, shows him walking through the entrance when a small, fast-moving orb streaks in from the side and collides with him. He staggers backward, falls down the stairs and appears momentarily unconscious. Hospital reports later confirmed he needed 24 stitches, a serious injury, but thankfully not fatal. That moment, strange, swift, and shocking, sparked immediate speculation. The orb didn't look like a bug, a baseball, or even a satellite fragment. Reddit users pored over the video, calculating the object's astonishing speed and bizarre path. One wrote, "It performed sharp 90-degree turns, exceeding known military or civilian drone capabilities." Others disagreed, suggesting it could be nothing more than a moth caught by the camera's light, or a trick of editing. Either way, there's no denying one thing: it hit him, and hard. Fast forward to March 2025, and Colombia faced another curious sphere event. This time in Buga, not Medellin. A smooth, metallic orb, about the size of a basketball and weighing roughly 4.5 pounds, crashed in a wooded area, recovered by locals and examined by scientists. The object had no welds or joints, 3-layered metal structure, and contained 18 interior microspheres surrounding a central chip. Ancient-like symbols, runes and Mesopotamian script were etched on its surface, and AI reportedly translated the message as urging environmental consciousness. Dr. Jose Luis Velázquez, a radiologist, said the orb's high-density structure and seamless manufacture suggest non-human origin, though skeptics like Dr. Julia Mossbridge argue it could be sophisticated hardware or even an art installation. So, are these two events connected? Was the orb that struck the man in 2024 a smaller fragment of the Buga sphere? Or are they separate mysteries, one caught on camera, the other systematically investigated? One common thread: no official agency has confirmed origins. The military and aerospace experts haven't claimed responsibility, and no space tracking data matches these incidents. That silence deepens the mystery. Was it a drone malfunction, a rare natural phenomenon, something like ball lightning? Or is someone experimenting with exotic tech? Whatever the cause, one thing is clear: we saw it happen, leaving behind video, stitches, symbols, and questions. What if something silent and strange is out there, moving fast, touching us, without warning? And more importantly, what happens when the unknown just walks out of the night into your doorway?